Hey everybody, it's Pax. Welcome back to the campaign play-along for Alice in Wonderland. Before I continue on with the story, I just wanted to do a quick correction at the end of the last scenario. If you haven't watched it yet, sorry about this, but I missed this here before resolving any other resolution. If the Jabberwock is in the victory display, you read left it dead, which I'll read this in a moment, but I got to add a Strength of Wonderland, and that's what let me add the Vorpal Blade to, to Tommy's deck. So that should have been something I read last scenario. Sorry I missed it, and let's read Left It Dead really quickly. Again and again, the horrible Jabberwock swoops in to attack you, and each time you beat the monster back. The beast drips with a foul ichor from its wounds that grows with each skirmish, and yet it continues its assault without any hesitation. The Jabberwock grasps at you with a furious howl, and you strike back hard and true. Your final blow separates the creature's head from its body in a fantastic shower of gore, and the hulking body collapses to the forest floor, twitching and spasming. You recuperate slowly, put off by the monster's death throes, but still alive with a feeling of victory slowly building inside you. The nearby members of the expedition look to you with surprise and tell themselves that you could certainly use an extra ration of grog for saving them from the beast. So, let's continue on with the interlude, Humpty Dumpty. Another obstacle blocks your passage through Wonderland, this time in the form of a vast brick wall. It stretches towards the horizon in either direction, making you doubt if a way around it exists. Climbing doesn't seem to be an option either, as it stands at the height of a house without any possible footholds. Exasperated, you begin walking its length in hopes of finding any kind of door or passage through. Some distance down the wall you spot a rotund figure perched atop it. As you draw close, the silhouette of an egg with legs grows clearer. You doubt your own eyes for a moment. Who else could it possibly be but Humpty Dumpty from the old nursery rhyme? He sits atop the wall with his eyes closed and his fist on his chin, or at least the part of his body that passes for his chin, in deep thought. You call up to him, but he hisses down at you. "Don't speak! Move away! Or you might bring the end about quicker." Humpty spits at you, trying to remain oblivious to you. You insist in confusion, and finally he looks down at you with a mixture of annoyance and dread. "Now you've done it! I was safe while I was deep in ponderance." You question whether the word means what he thinks, but he shakes his head, or himself, rather. "When I use a word, it means precisely what I wish it to mean. Otherwise, what good would it be?" You decide not to press him on that point, and ask again about the end he mentioned earlier. "The end, don't you see? The others may not see it, but surely you can. I can recognize one of Alice's ilk when I see one, not from Wonderland at all. You know as well as I that this land is but a dream, and I, drawn from a sad and dismal tale, am doomed to a gravatic fate." You begin to see Humpty's worries. Sat on a wall, had a great fall, couldn't be put back together again. You assert that the children's story and his existence are two separate things, but his expression grows darker. "It's no use. The printed word is my fate, and that's the end of it. It's simply my means to an end, and always has been." Humpty's stare grows unfocused, and he begins to wobble atop the wall. The investigators must decide. Choose one. You're only locked into fate if you choose to accept it, or your fussing is only making it worse for yourself. And we're going to choose, of course, you're only locked into fate if you choose to accept it. Proceed to unpredictability. Unpredictability. "Except," Humpty scoffs, steadying himself to continue his tirade, "why, I've a good mind to come down there and show you precisely why I should accept it." He begins to clamber down the wall, more sliding than climbing, and slipping at several points, but he reaches the ground unscathed. Humpty wags a finger at you as he continues ranting. "Simply don't accept it. What an utterly intangible thought. What reason should I have to believe that I should survive a fall from up—" He points up to his former perch and pauses in thought. "Up there? Down to here?" Humpty takes a quick stock of his surroundings and kneads the grass beneath his shoes as the truth dawns on him. "I'm vivacious, undisturbed. There was no great fall or failure to repurpose my pieces." He leaps into the air and clicks his heels in joy as you simply stand by and watch, bemused. Humpty revels for a few moments longer before he grabs your hand and shakes it vigorously. "Well met indeed, then. You've assuredly granted me a new perspective. Why, I might do a great many other things now that I've regained myself." You tell Humpty to take it easy for a while, not wanting to turn him into a daredevil. His fate is his own, but an egg's still an egg. In your campaign log, record 1 tally mark under Strength of Wonderland. In your campaign log, under Wonderland's boons, record Humpty Dumpty. Add 1 tablet token to the Chaos Bag for the remainder of the campaign. Skip to guidance from Alice. With the matter of Humpty Dumpty behind you, the problem of the wall remains. The wall might very well be infinite, if Alice's dreams are, and without so much as a tree to use in scaling the wall, you'll have to double back and find another way. Before you can act, however, the sound of scraping bricks meets your ears. You scan the wall for the source of the sound, but you can't pinpoint it. Upon closer inspection, the entire wall seems to be trembling slightly. A tremendous rumbling begins to sound through the bricks, and you take several steps backward, looking down to either end of the wall. The top layer of the wall rises like a wave, and a ripple of displaced masonry works down from either end, looking to meet up at your spot. You leap backwards, even further, as the bricks collide with a crash, and a cloud of powdered mortar obscures your vision. The dust settles quickly in the silence of the aftermath, and the wall before you has been cracked at the top, with loose bricks now forming a rough ramp upward. Once again, you can only attribute such swift and dramatic assistance as Alice's influence on her own dreams, helping to guide you along. With another obstacle eliminated, you climb the mound of debris and easily pass through the fissure in the brick wall. If the investigators went down the rabbit hole, proceed to Scenario 2E, Sibling Rivalry, but as always, we're going to go take a quick look at our deck building before we get started on the scenario setup. This week I'm not going to be doing the deck building on Arkham DB because I'm finally adding a couple of the recently spoiled cards from the Edge of the Earth Investigator pack. What I'm doing is I'm dropping 2 Daring and 1 Active Desperation for 2 Overpower level 2, and the new Combat Training level 3, which is a 0-cost fast asset with a limit 1 composure in play, double combat and agility icon. You get a static combat and agility boost. Non-direct damage and horror must be assigned to combat training before it can be assigned to your investigator card. And it has the spend 1 resource to get +1 combat or +1 agility for this test, and it has 3 health and 1 horror. I figure Active Desperation might be losing me a lot of money to drop, but this is giving me a nice static combat boost, as well as probably paying me back at least 1 resource every time I play it, and it's fast, so it's not actually costing me actions to get it into play. So between those two, I think that kind of evens itself out, and gives me something that's just really useful. So those will be going right into Tommy's deck, alongside the Vorpal Blade that we added. So for Storm and Norman, I'm going a little crazy. I added a Versatile. I dropped my 2 Delves for the new Foresight card. It's a 0-cost, 1 Intellect Pip, double Intellect icons. Fast, when an investigator at your location would draw a card from their deck or from the encounter deck, name a card. If the drawn card is the named card, that investigator may either cancel that card's effects and discard it, or immediately play that card at -2 cost. This is basically letting him... I mean, it's doubling as a economy card, but it's also letting him play 2 cards from the top of his deck per round. The first one being a draw action where you just name it and play Foresight. But it's also nice icons for the atlases, and eventually I might be able to use this as a cancel, and eventually I might be able to use this to help Tommy get stuff into play. So between all those things, really happy to try out Foresight. The Delves, they were just clogging up the top of my deck and stuff too much, and I was getting kind of sick of them. I've also added a Relic Hunter here for an additional accessory slot. And with the Versatile, I'm adding a single Quick Thinking. I think that'll be really cool with his Astronomical Atlases. A single Holy Rosary and David Renfield at level 0, replacing those 2 Delves for my 5 level 0 Mystic cards. And a single Arcane Enlightenment and a single Deep Knowledge. I figure a Deep Knowledge might be useful to hand some draws over to Tommy, and otherwise it'll help me fill up my deck. So that is what I'm looking at for Norman. Quick shuffle there, and we'll get started with Sibling Rivalry. Scenario 2E, Sibling Rivalry. The places in Wonderland where the fields and trees meet tend to spark the greatest suspicion in you. The illusion of safety in the wide plains makes the darkened forests look all the more sinister. Shadows flit around every fallen log and bed of moss, making each step forward a nervous one. Where will Gurith Naka's hungry minions strike from this time? As if to answer your question, a pair of dark claws extends from a rotted stump. But before you can beat them back, a shaking sound echoes from within the woods, and the shadows retreat. Curiosity strikes you at the swift result, and you head a little deeper into the woods to find the source of the noise. Even after what you've seen in Wonderland, the sight that greets you seems far-fetched. Two rotund figures of indeterminate age stand in a clearing, fighting back and forth over a small object. It takes a moment of observation before it occurs to you that the two look exactly like Tweedledum and Tweedledee from the old nursery rhyme. They're currently tussling with each other over a toy rattle, which you quickly identify as the source of the strange noise from before. You look to the edges of the clearing and confirm that each wild shake of the rattle causes the creeping shadows to shrink away. Strange as it seems, it may help your mission to get that rattle. You step closer to the two and try to interject, but the twins look at you indignantly. "It's rude to interrupt," Tweedledee snaps at you with a sneer. "Contrariwise, it's polite to say nothing at all," Tweedledum chimes in. They ignore your attempts at reasoning and bargaining as they return to their tug-of-war. "It's my rattle, and I shan't let you take it," Tweedledum grunts at his brother. "You've had your fun. It's my turn now," Tweedledee spits back. The two pull on the rattle until a wooden crack echoes out, and each collapses back with half of it. "You broke it!" Tweedledum cries out, though his brother shakes his head and sneers. "Didn't!" The pair storm off before you can intervene or mediate, shouting threats of war at each other. You sigh in irritation. At first, you consider just snatching the pieces of the rattle away from them, but your plan is quickly stifled by the sudden appearance of two massive armies of figures. One battalion is made of living playing cards, and the other of living chess pieces, each siding with one of the Tweedles, who are busy strapping household objects to themselves for protection. The Cheshire Cat appears between you, with the same telltale grin, but a roll of his eyes. Tweedledum and Tweedledee agreed to have a battle. Surely you know the rest. It purrs as the combatants take places across a small wooded valley from each other. Once again, you've been caught up in the nonsense of Wonderland's strange citizens. Still, if at all possible, you've got to get your hands on that rattle. Okay, so as always, setup is finished in Tabletop Simulator ahead of time. So all of these are already assembled. We'll go take a look at our new boon. We've got the Dodo, the Caterpillar, the Duchess, the Griffin, and the Mock Turtle, and finally, Mr. Humpty Dumpty himself. He's kind of the same deal, Surge. Revelation, put him into play next to the agenda deck. Reaction, when a tablet token is revealed, cancel that token. Do not reveal another token. Discard Humpty Dumpty. So he's pretty good. We set the Monstrous Crow and the Tweedle's Rattle out of play. We see our map here set out before us. We've got Tweedledum on this side of the map and Tweedledee on this side of the map. And as you might guess, you take each of these locations and discard one of the options from play, and leaving the other one available on the map. Now, we got to take a bit of extra care because these connections are a little friggy. From the center, you can move up and in, but you can only move back this way. But you can move across this way. So it's a bit of a complicated map, and I'll have to be a little extra careful on making sure I get my movement effects correct here. The Cheshire Cat begins play with the lead investigator, who is, of course, Tommy. Tommy and Norman begin play at the Overgrown Dell. And finally, I have to search the collected cards for a soldier enemy and put it into play at a different slope location. It's two soldier enemies if there are 3 or 4 players. And I cannot choose pawn enemies. So I've got these card guards that I saw in one of the earlier scenarios. I believe it was the Queen of Hearts scenario there. We've got these chess pieces as well. Now I can't take the pawns. I've got 4 pawns in the deck. I've got 2 red knights, and I've got 2 red bishops. Sorry, 1 red bishop and 1 red rook. I have a feeling I want to add a 2 health enemy into play, so I think I'm going to take this card guard of hearts and put that into play. And he's going to begin play here at the northwest slope. Taking a quick look at the chaos bag here, I've got my normal distribution of tokens. My skulls are currently -1, and they will be -3 if there are at least 2 total tokens on this scenario card. The cultist and tablet token are both a -2, but there are -4 if there are not an equal number of damage and horror tokens on the scenario card. And finally, the elder thing is a -2, and if you fail, you place a damage token and a horror token on the scenario card. For Tommy, we're going to be starting Stick to the Plan with a Flare, an Act of Desperation, and an Ever Vigilant. Quickly shuffle this deck and take a look at our opening hand. We've got the Star. That's excellent to see early. The Dormouse, the Vorpal Blade, the Bandolier, getting rid of this Take the Initiative, and drawing a stunning blow. That's pretty good. I'm happy with that. That is a really sick first turn. Star's going to be starting to play. That's great. Let's take a look what Norman gets. Let's see what we get. Rosary, Atlas, Deduction, a Foresight, and a Research Librarian. I think that is a pretty incredible hand. That is already letting us find the Livre d'Ibon with the Librarian, and Atlas and Livre a Deduction repeatedly. I do think I need to get a spell a bit more than I need to get a Holy Rosary. And so we'll just mulligan the one card. And that's the Bellman. Interesting. Alright. Well, that's that, and we'll see what our top card is. It's the Harbinger on turn 1. Beautiful. Agenda 1A, Brother Against Brother. Acting on the Tweedle's orders, the cards and chess pieces clash with each other on every available point in the small wooded valley. At the rate this battle is escalating, the soldiers might actually kill one of the Tweedles before you can get the rattle. Forced. When a card enemy is defeated, place 1 damage on the scenario card from the token bank. Forced. When a chess enemy is defeated, place 1 horror on the scenario card from the token bank. Act 1A, Thinning the Ranks. To end the pointless war between Tweedledum and Tweedledee and get that rattle, you're going to have to be creative, especially if you don't want to just kill one of them. Unfortunately, the massive amounts of cards and chess pieces recruited by the Tweedles are bogging down any plans you've devised. Objective: if there are no enemies in play, advance. Well, that's fortunate. If I'm able to get Tommy up to this very first card guard of hearts and kill him this turn, then we're going to get to advance right away and see what our next objective is. We begin play here at the Overgrown Dell. Fallen logs and tangling weeds collect at the bottom of this small valley. This doesn't seem to deter the cards and chess pieces marching down from the opposing hills. The Overgrown Dell is a 3-shroud, 2-clue location. Action: if there are at least 4 total tokens on the scenario card, test Willpower or Intellect 4. If you succeed in your campaign log, under Fragments of Alice, record Reason. The card and chess soldiers clash around you, obeying the orders of the twins. If only you could convince them to give up this ridiculous duel. Well, as painful as all that is for poor Norman, at least I've got a pretty easy turn over here on Tommy. We're going to be doing a turn 1, action 1, Ever Vigilant, playing the Vorpal Sword for 2, the Dormouse for 2, and the Bandolier for 1. We're going to be moving up to the northwest slope, engaging the card guard of hearts, but we're here at the northwest slope. The path of the north side of Tweedledum's Hill is packed with cards, all clamoring to get down into the central valley. You may not be able to get back down the way you came. 2 shroud, 2 clue location. If there are at least 2 more damage tokens than horror tokens on the scenario card, you cannot investigate the northwest slope. The cards raise their spears as you approach, guarding the ascent to the hill carefully. And now we're going to take an attack against the card guard of hearts. We're at 4-5 against 3. We're 2 up. And fortunately, 2 up is pretty reasonable looking on the bag here. +1. Awesome. So we even get to heal a horror if we had it. But we don't. We just deal 2 damage, defeating him. Placing a damage token on the scenario card. And advancing our first act. Need to know basis. The twins' armies are almost as evenly matched as they themselves are. Every soldier of theirs that you can cut down swings the balance of the battle in the favor of the other. However, with few soldiers blocking your movements, you can focus on figuring out how to bring an end to the battle. Scare tactics. As the battle drags on, the shadows initially banished by the rattle have begun to creep back towards the valley. You think on the childish personalities of the Tweedles and their old nursery rhyme, and you wonder if you can somehow focus the shadows to scare them out of their duel. Objective: only investigators at Overgrown Dell may spend the requisite number of clues to advance, 3 per investigator, for a total of 6. Decent first turn for Tommy over there, but Norman is going to be super simple. We're going to be removing the Harbinger, revealing the next top card of our deck. Next, Norman is going to play the shortcut off the top of his deck to follow Tommy up the northwest slope. He's going to reveal the next card on the top of his deck, which is Divination. And then he is going to play 1, 2, 3, his Astronomical Atlas. And he's going to use the Atlas to put the Divination onto his Atlas, revealing the next card, which is David Renfield. That's the end of our turn, so we're going to be over here on Tommy doing our upkeep. He's getting an Overpower 2, which I think I won't be using Dormouse as a reaction to shuffle that card and draw another. And then over here on Norman, we're going to be also doing an upkeep, and I'm not going to use Foresight when I draw David Renfield here, because I don't think that his Doom stuff is going to be particularly useful with that tiny little 3 Doom threshold. So we'll save that for some later uses. In case you were worried before I do this encounter draw, I did put all of my boons into the encounter deck there. So we're good. We got 1 out of 3 Doom, and we're looking at our first encounter card of the game. That's Humpty Dumpty. And as always, I'm going to be putting them right here above our player card area in hopes of not forgetting them. Humpty surges into the Red Knight. Hunter, a 3/2/4. After Red Knight attacks you, lose 1 resource, 2 resources instead if Red Knight moved to your location before attacking. Oh, that's a clever Knight mechanic. I like that. And then over here on Norman, we're going to get Dark Interference. Peril. Search the encounter deck for a soldier enemy. You must either choose one. Spawn that enemy at a slope location, empty if possible, with 1 Doom on it, or discard that enemy and then take 1 damage and 1 horror. After resolving this effect, shuffle the encounter deck. We're going to go ahead and find one of these card guards of spades, and we're going to be discarding him and taking 1 and 1 on Norman. So we'll go ahead and get started with Tommy over here. He's going to first do an attack with the Vorpal Blade against the Red Knight. We're attacking 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 against 3. A -2. That's 6 against 3. That's successful by 2. It's going to deal our 2 damage to defeat him. Then we're going to draw 2 cards for the successful test. I think we're going to exhaust the Dormouse. After we draw a non-weakness card from our deck, we can exhaust him to shuffle a card back into our deck. We're going to be shuffling this, look what I found, back into the deck and drawing another card, which is a Vicious Blow. So that's good. Because the Red Knight is a chest enemy, this gets put on the scenario card, and now we're looking at our skulls being -3s. So we're going to need to be getting some better bonuses out pretty quickly. And then we're just going to take a couple extra draw actions. Another Vicious Blow. That's nice to see as well. We might even take... Yeah, we're going to take another draw action, and that's our Kleptomania. That's a bit of a bummer. That's alright. Turn ends, and we get a horror on the Dormouse. Over here on Norman, we're going to use the Atlas to attach an Enraptured to it, and revealing a Hypochondria, and then a Guts on the top of the deck. I'm going to go ahead and investigate the location first action with a Divination and a Deduction. That's 5, 6, 7 against 2. The Cultist token is currently a -2, but a -2 is sufficient for our 2 clues, as well as putting the Divination into our hand. Next, we're going to do a card draw. We're just going to draw the Guts, revealing a shortcut. After that, we're going to play the shortcut from the top of the deck, heading down to the southwest slope. It's a 2 Shroud, 2 clue location. While there are more damage tokens on the scenario card than horror tokens, southwest slope gets +2 Shroud, so it doesn't currently have that. The cards here bolster their forces to make up any shortcomings on other parts of the battlefield. We'll reveal that top card of Norman's deck again. Last but not least, we're going to just do an investigate here, 5 against 2. The skull is currently -3, but that's still a successful investigation for our 3rd clue of the game. So we do upkeep over here on Tommy. There's our upkeep. I'm going to use the Dormouse to reshuffle this, take the initiative back into his deck and draw a different card. Cherished Keepsake, nice to see. And then upkeep for Norman. We're going to draw that Storm of Spirits off the top of the deck and see a Deep Knowledge. Perfect. 2 out of 3 Doom and encounter cards. Exchange Sacrifice. put Exchange Sacrifice into play next to the agenda. After a chess enemy is defeated or discarded, the investigator that defeated or discarded that enemy takes 1 damage or loses 2 resources. Then discard Exchange Sacrifice. Over on Norman, we've got Caught in the Fray. Test Willpower or Agility 5. For each point you fail by, discard the top card of the encounter deck. For each card enemy discarded, take 1 damage and lose 1 resource. For each chess enemy discarded, take 1 horror and discard a card from your hand at random. Well, we don't want to be doing any of that, so let's commit this Guts to it. Let's look at this Deep Knowledge, I suppose, and then also commit that from there. So we're going to be at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 against 5. And I'm pretty happy with 8 against 5. 8 against 5 is a decent chunk of the bag right now. -1. Perfect. And that even succeeds by 2. So when we did that, technically this Research Librarian should have been revealed before I pulled the token, I suppose. But we do get to draw 2 from Guts. This Deep Knowledge is going to be going to our hand along with this Research Librarian. Can you go to my hand? Is that going to work? Perfect. And then also the next top card, which is a Crystalline Elder Sign. Then a Divination gets revealed from the top of the deck. Guts goes away, and Caught in the Fray gets discarded. Let's go ahead with Norman first this time. We're going to draw the top card of our deck, which is Divination, and we're going to, when we would draw a card from our deck, name it. And we're going to name Divination. So we draw that and immediately play it for -2 cost, which comes into play with 4 charges. Next card on top of the deck is Deduction. Then we're going to take an Investigate, committing this Enraptured to it. That's 6 against 2. Ooh, an auto fail. Bummer. That's okay. Last but not least, we're going to Investigate again. This time committing our Divination to it for 6 against 2 again. -2. That time we get the clue. Over here on Tommy, we're going to play Flare from the top of our deck, attempting to find an ally of the top 9 cards. There's our top 9 cards, and there's who we like to see, Gret Wagner, popping into play right here. Exiling our Flare, and shuffling the rest back into the deck. After that, we're going to play our Cherished Keepsake for no money at all. And finally, we're going to take 1 more draw action for our other Flare. Interesting. The end of round, we're going to do an upkeep. We will keep to take the initiative this time, I think. Seems like some pretty nasty encounter cards might be heading our way, so we'll do our upkeep over here on Norman, which is going to reveal a Holy Rosary off the top of the deck. Okay, the Moment of Reckoning. Let's see what this does. We advance up to 3 zoom, and we see the opposite side of Brother against Brother. Tit for tat. With the slight shifting of the flow of combat, one of the soldiers gets an opportunity to storm the opposing hill and attack the dismayed twin on it. Count the damage and horror tokens on the scenario card and resolve the following. If there are more damage tokens on the scenario card than horror tokens, and Tweedledum is in play, deal 1 damage to Tweedledum. If there are more horror tokens on the scenario card than damage tokens, and Tweedledee is in play, deal 1 damage to Tweedledee. Otherwise, deal 1 damage to either Tweedledum or Tweedledee. Choose one in play. If no resolution was reached through this effect, remove all tokens from the scenario card. Then, flip this agenda back to its A side. Well, let's go take a quick closer look at Tweedledum and Tweedledee so we can make an informed choice here. Tweedledum is over here, the troublesome twin. He has an action that says deal 3 damage to Tweedledum. Any investigator at Tweedledum's location may activate this ability. Flip this location. This action does not provoke attacks of opportunity. Forced, if there are 1 per investigator horror on Tweedledum, flip Tweedledum and move him to the victory display. If Tweedledum is defeated by damage, R2, victory 0. Tweedledee's over here on the East Hill, and he has basically the exact same text. So the choice I'm making right now is whether I get to put a damage on Tweedledee or Tweedledum because I have an equal amount of damage and horror. So I have 2 card enemies defeated and 1 chess enemy defeated, assuming that there's an equal amount in the deck, which I didn't actually check when I put a soldier in play at the start of the scenario. And the fact that chess enemies put horror, which deals damage to Tweedledee, I think if I put the damage now on Tweedledum, I'm more likely to have it even between them. And I think that putting it even between them is what I'm looking for. So let's put a damage on Tweedledum. And then we remove all tokens from the scenario card and flip this back over. A damage on Tweedledum, and removing the tokens from the scenario card. Alright, encounter cards for Tommy is going to be a Card Guard of Diamonds. 3 health enemy, 2 combat, 3 agility. After Card Guard of Diamonds attacks you, choose to discard a card from your hand with at least an agility icon. If you cannot, take a damage. Also, at the end of my last turn with Tommy, I did forget to place a horror down from Kleptomania. Over here on Norman, we're looking at Misdeal. Test 1 agility. This card's difficulty increases 1 for every 2 card enemies in the encounter discard pile. If you fail, discard 2 cards from your hand at random. Then, if you have 2 or fewer cards in your hand, take 1 damage. Well, fortunately, we're not taking damage from this, but we're definitely failing this agility test. I could put a bunch of icons into this, I suppose. And notably, these are back to -1s because I don't have 2 total tokens on the scenario card anymore. So I don't think that dumping these research librarians into the test is actually all that silly. Let's put a single research librarian. Let's put another research librarian. I think I want to get this rosary into play rather than this crystalline elder sign at the moment. So let's dump, let's dump all 3 of those into the test. We'll be testing 4 against 2. 0. There we go. We pass. Before the turn start, we'll get this rosary onto the astronomical atlas. Seeing a guts on top. Okay, let's get this guy beaten up with Tommy. We'll be attacking with the Vorpal Blade. We're at 4, 5, 6 against 2. Let's just get to 7 against 2. That'll get us up over the -5, and we can definitely defeat him in 1 hit. Draw -1, which, like I said, defeats him in 1 hit. We will play our Glory from our hand. Draw 2 cards. That's an Ever Vigilant and the 45 Thompson. Placing a damage token on the scenario card, and making the Cultist and Cultist and Tablet currently a -4. Next, we're going to take a move action and head up to Tweedledum's location. At the West Hill, we've got a parlay. Test Willpower or Intellect 3 to convince one of Tweedledum's playing cards to abandon the fight. If you succeed, place a damage token on the scenario card. If you fail, take 1 damage instead. Victory 1. Last action here with Tommy. I think we're just going to take a resource. At the end of his turn, a horror gets put on his cherished keepsake. Don't forget, he currently has +1 sanity because of the star. Thanks, star. Over here on Norman, we're going to take a move action to head up with Tommy. Right there. We're going to play a Deep Knowledge, which is going to add 2 curse tokens. 1, 2, and he's going to draw 3 cards total. So 1, 2, 3. And then reveal a top card, which is an Arcane Enlightenment. And finally, he's going to investigate his location, using Divination, committing Guts and the Holy Rosary off of his Astronomical Atlas. That is 9 against the difficulty of 4 on the location, putting me 5 up. Elder Thing. Elder Thing is -2, so that's pretty good. We get our 2 draws with Guts, which is going to draw this Arcane Enlightenment. Let's do that. Come on. There we go. And a Eureka, and revealing an Enraptured off the top of the deck. And the Guts is going to go into the discard. The Holy Rosary is going to go into our hand. Let's get that in the hand. Come on. Come on, beautiful. There we go. And then finally, we'll be spending 2 charges off of Divination to grab the 2 clues. And when we do that, we're going to be playing Crack the Case to gain 4 resources onto Tommy. Perfect. And we're going to be playing another Crack the Case to gain 1, 2, 3, 4 resources between the 2 of us. Okay, that's the end of that round. We're going to do an upkeep over here on Tommy, getting our Survival Knife. Perfect. We're definitely not going to be shuffling that one away. And over here on Norman Withers, we're going to be doing our upkeep, getting the Quick Thinking on the top of the deck. Perfect. I'd love to get 2 Quick Thinking uses out of the Atlas. That's excellent. 1 out of 3 Doom, and an encounter card for Tommy. And it is a Card Guard of Spades. Sweet. Encounter card on Norman is the Petulant Creature, which is going to flip the Cheshire Cat. And that surges into Caught in the Fray. We're definitely going to be testing a Willpower, and we're going to commit a bunch of cards to this again. We're going to use the Astronomical Atlas to attach the Quick Thinking to it. We're going to flip that top card. So we're going to be committing these 3 cards as well as the quick thinking to be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 against 5. Elder Sign. Sweet. Swap the top card of your deck with a card in your hand. X is the resource cost of the card in your the top card of your deck. We're going to swap the Holy Rosary with David Renfield, because I don't mind so much if he goes away. He's not great icons right now, but it'd be cool to see him later, I think. So we're going to swap them. That's going to be a +2. So these are going to go to the discard. We're passing that. We're going to use Eureka to look at the top 3 cards of the deck and draw one of them. We're going to draw the Perception. Come on. These are going to shuffle away. Shuffle, reveal a Miss Sevrilia, and then we're going to get an action, which we're going to immediately use to play a Miss Sevrilia off the top of the deck for 1 resource. And we're going to lose all of our money. And the Sixth Sense is on top now. All right. Okay, so I think in order to try to not just put all the damage on one guy, what we're going to do is we're going to engage the card guard with Norman, and then we're going to evade him with a Miss Sevrilia. So we are at 4, 5, 6, 7 against 2. The tablet is currently a -4, I believe, because they're not equal. But so that is successful, but I do have to discard a card from my hand at random. So we're losing a single Enraptured, not that big of a deal. He's evaded at our location. And then Norman is going to get to use Mist's ability to scoot back to the overgrown dell. And you know what? I think that Norman is also going to immediately advance the act by spending all of his clues. So let's see what we're dealing with. That is 6 clues at the overgrown dell to immediately advance. At first, it seems to be impossible to corral the shadows towards any specific part of the battlefield. However, on the sloped terrain around the battlefield, you find several fallen crow feathers that seem to draw nearby shadows towards them. You gather as many as you can and collect them in the central valley. Within minutes, darkness begins to coalesce around the bundle of feathers and expand into an enormous shape. You take several steps back and cover your ears as the unearthly cawing of an unnatural crow screams out from the growing darkness. Tweedledum and Tweedledee stop barking orders at their minions and stand in a frightened awe as the shadowy crow takes shape. Put the set-aside Monstrous Crow into play next to the agenda deck. So the Monstrous Crow is now in play. Forced at the end of the enemy phase, Monstrous Crow attacks each investigator in player order regardless of location. Investigators may, as a group, may spend 1 clue to cancel an attack made against any investigator. Wow, that is a little rough. That said, we're at As the Crow Flies. The Tweedles are already panicking, but still attempting to marshal their troops into action. With the Shadowy Crow bearing down on the battlefield, you'll have the tools you need to scare some sense into the twins. If you are at the same location as Tweedledum or Tweedledee, parlay. Test Willpower 4 or Intellect 4. If you succeed, place 1 horror on an uncontrolled story asset at your location. If Tweedledum, Terrified Twin, and Tweedledee, Terrified Twin are both in the victory display, advance. So I guess if he's the one with the damage on him, we probably want to save him first and force the damage on him. So I guess killing this card enemy would actually be okay, because that would get the next damage on him, so long as Norman can get up here and put 2 horror on him before he gets defeated. And so to that end, he'll be using his last action to head back up the hill to the northwest slope. Tommy is going to do a card draw for a marksmanship. Okay, so what he's going to do is he's going to use the Dormouse to shuffle that back into the deck and draw a different card. Another 45 Thompson. Interesting. Okay, well, not quite what he needed. We're going to use Ever Vigilant to play the Survival Knife and the 45 Thompson for a total of 6 resources. Second action. And third action, we're going to take a shot with the 45 Thompson, gaining a dollar back, to take a shot at the exhausted card enemy at my location. He's a 4-fight enemy. I'm at 4, 5, 6, 7. 0 is successful and defeats him. Remember, he's a card enemy, so he's going to be placing a damage on the scenario card. Like so. At the end of Tommy's turn, we're going to be placing 1 more horror onto our cherished keepsake, and that is going to get shuffled into our deck, giving us 3 resources. Upkeep for Tommy is his Psychosis. Can't use Dormouse on that. And upkeep for Norman is his Sixth Sense, which we already knew about, and Hierophant. 2 out of 3 Doom. And Tommy's encounter card for the turn. Vanished away. Choose a player who does not control the Cheshire Cat. They gain control of the Cheshire Cat. So we got our auto-fail Cheshire Cat over on Norman now. We've got threatened position. Put threatened position in play in your threat area. Well, there's a chess enemy at your location. You get -2 to all skills during skill tests, except during fight or evade attempts. Well, fortunately, that's all Tommy's really doing. So he might not need to clear that. Norman Withers is going to draw the red rook. Retaliate. Each other chess enemy at this location gains retaliate. Well, we can kind of just leave him behind, fortunately. We're going to go ahead and use Tommy first, though, because he's got this take the initiative in hand. He's going to attempt the parlay of willpower on Tweedledum. So he's currently 7 against 4. We'll even commit this flare to get up to the 4 over. We get a curse, and a -4. So we super duper fail that test. But that's okay, we got both the curses out of the bag, so we don't have to worry about them anymore. After that, we're just going to take a couple of draws. Madame Lebranche is fine, and look what I found is fine. Over here on Norman, we're going to use a Miss of Rilliat charge to evade the red rook. We are at 4, 5, 6, 7 against 2. -2 is successful, and we're going to move up to the West Hill. Going to attempt to parlay with intellect first, putting a perception and a sixth sense into the test, putting us at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 against 4, -3, which is succeeding by 2. And so we are not flipping Cheshire Cat. We are drawing the Hierophant. Oops, wrong hand. And then putting a horror on Tweedledum. Now we're going to use the Atlas to put the Atlas on the Atlas, revealing our next card, which is a Foresight. That's a fun one to see. And we're going to do the intellect test again, I think. But this time we're going to just be a little riskier about it. And we're going to commit the Astronomical Atlas from the Atlas. 5, 6, 7 against... No, we're going to waste a deduction. We're going to go 8 against 4. Other sign. Cool. All right. Doesn't really matter too much because whatever I put on, I'm just going to be swapping back into my hand. So we're going to just leave that as is. These both go to the discard. Sorry, that goes to the discard. This goes to my hand. Place another horror here on Tweedledum. And if there is 2 horror on Tweedledum, flip Tweedledum, and then move him to the victory display. Oh, sweet, victory 2. Just then flew down a monstrous crow, as black as a tar barrel, which frightened both the heroes so they quite forgot their quarrel. Terrified twin. Cool. All right, we got one of them saved. Perfect. That's great. I think I forgot to take a horror from Kleptomania at the end of my turn, because I don't think that cherished keepsake died this turn. We're looking for a fight against each of us for 1 horror at the end of the enemy phase. And that is just going to hit Tommy directly. And it's going to hit poor Norman directly as well. Alright, upkeep. Rookie mistake. Yeah, that gets rid of the Dormouse. I knew that was coming, but I'd rather lose the Dormouse than most other guys. And I have Madame Lebranche for a huge soak pile to replace him. And then Norman Withers is going to do an upkeep as well. And we can get this Livre des Bons for free on our next action, next turn. Perfect. 3 Doom. We advance this. Count the damage and horror tokens on the scenario card and result the following. If there are more damage tokens on the scenario card than horror tokens, and Tweedledum is in play, deal 1 damage to Tweedledum. Well, he's not in play, so we don't get to choose that option. There are not more horror tokens than damage tokens, and Tweedledee is in play, deal a damage to Tweedledee. Otherwise, deal a damage to either Tweedledum or Tweedledee. Choose one in play. So I have to deal a damage to poor Tweedledee over there. But I'm not too worried about it because I feel like we're making really decent time. I did forget that I was supposed to deal myself a direct damage when I took a horror at the end of the turn there. And also probably from the horror that I put on the Dormouse from the Kleptomania. In fact, I might have missed this a couple times, and I'll try to double check the video to make sure that I'm not missing that I should have died by now. Don't think that's likely, but you never know. So our encounter card here on Tommy, we're getting Contested Area. Attach it to your location. When an enemy would spawn at or enter the attached location, place a doom on that enemy. Test for intellect or for combat. If you succeed, discard the contested area. And then for Norman, we get the red pawn. The first red pawn drawn each Mythos phase gains Surge. Okay, well, we just get another one. Dark Interference. You must either... you search for the deck for a soldier enemy, and you must either spawn that at a slope location with a doom on it, or discard that enemy and then take a damage and a horror. And for that effect, we're going to spawn another red pawn over here at the southeast slope. And when the pawn spawned on us, we have to place a doom on that enemy, and we have to place a doom on the other pawn that spawned as well from the other treachery. So Tommy's going to go first, and he's going to defeat this red pawn off of poor Norman here with a 45 Thompson, gaining a resource all the while. 4, 5, 6, 7 against 2. 0. Super successful. And he is toast, but he is a chess enemy, and I'm losing 2 resources and then discarding the exchange sacrifice there. Killing that enemy, put a horror on the scenario card. Finally, we're going to double-click Psychosis so that we don't have to take a bunch more direct damage. Doesn't seem super good. I did have -2 to all my skills during this turn, but it was just that fight, so not a big deal. At the end of the turn, I do have to take a horror from the Kleptomania, which is going to go on Gret here. Now we're over here looking at Norman. Norman is going to draw first action, which is going to be the Livre des Bons, which I'm going to call out specifically as the Livre des Bons, so it's going to go into play. Norman's going to go ahead and move back to the Overgrown Dell. And then he is going to use the Livre des Bons to swap the Holy Rosary with David Renfield. And last action, play the Holy Rosary off the top of his deck for 1 resource, revealing a Perception, which then goes onto the Astronomical Atlas. In the enemy phase here, the Monstrous Crow is going to be attacking each of the investigators for 1 horror. That's 1 on Gret over here. Keep in mind, Star is still giving her +1. And then 1 over here on Norman directly. Do our upkeeps over here. That's an enchant weapon for Tommy. That's really great to see. And then over here for Norman, a Eureka and a Ward of Protection off the top of the deck. Also very nice to see. 1 out of 3 Doom. And an encounter card for Tommy. He sees the Griffin and the Mock Turtle. Nice. So he's going to be heading right up here with our other next to the agenda cards. We also see a card guard who comes into play with a Doom. Over on Norman, we get the Dodo, which goes up with our next to the agenda cards. And we get the Red Bishop. Alert. Each other chess enemy at this location gains alert. So we're going to go ahead, first action, shooting at the card guard with a Vicious Blow, putting us at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 against 2. Very successful. He's toast. We get rid of that Doom. Our Vicious Blow goes away. He is a card enemy. And as we all clearly remember at this point, cards put a damage. Tommy is going to come catch up with Norman. And then Tommy is going to attempt to bonk the enemy off of Norman with the Vorpal Sword. So he's going to commit a Stunning Blow and a 45 Thompson to this. Whoopsies, didn't mean to do that. So he's going to be at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 against 2. And we're going to see if we can get the 3 damage to kill him, but if not, it's going to get evaded. -2. Not going to do that, but it is going to at least deal 2 damage and evade that enemy. Tommy is also going to take a horror at the end of his turn. So Stormin' Norman is going to go ahead and re-engage that enemy into his threat area. Then he's going to move down to the southeast slope. The path up the southeast slope side of Tweedledee's Hill is practically bursting with chess pieces, all eager to fight. You may not be able to come back, get back down the way you came. It's a 5 Shroud 2 clue location. After a card enemy is defeated at the southeast slope, this location gets -3 Shroud until the end of the round. Group limit once per round. But this guy's also going to engage us when we land there. Finally, we're going to swap this Ward of Protection with this Storm of Spirits. We're going to be using the Storm of Spirits off the top of our deck for 2 resources to fight the red pawn. We're going to be at 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 against 2, which is 6 up currently. We'll see what we get. The Cultist, which I believe we do not have available to cancel yet. So we are going to be taking 2 damage, which is going to deal us a direct horror, but we are going to defeat all of these enemies at once. 2 chess enemies is going to... Whoopsies. Where do you think you're going, mister? You're not going up there. You don't get a break. 2 chess enemies is going to place 2 horror on the token bank. Or, excuse me, on the scenario card. Now, the one final thing that I kind of didn't do amongst all this is reveal this top card, which is just an Arcane Enlightenment, and then Eureka's going to trigger to let me draw this Arcane Enlightenment, which is, whoops, not going to Tommy's hand. And then that's that. Perfect. During the enemy phase, the Raven is going to attack Tommy directly once, and Norman directly once. I'm going to get an upkeep over here on Tommy for Jessica Hyde. Nice. We're going to get an upkeep over here on Norman, getting a fresh deck shuffle. 2 out of 3 Doom. Quick reminder for myself on what my tokens are looking like. Quite a bit worse, I'd say. And we're looking at Tommy's encounter card, which is the Duchess. Could have used her a minute ago, but she's our Cultist cancel. She surges into Weekend. Test 3 willpower. This card gets +1 difficulty and peril if there is a card enemy at your location. Well, it doesn't. And I'm at 4 against 3. For each point you fail by, take 1 horror or choose and discard a card from your hand. Well, we're just going to be taking that flat out, and we're probably going to be choosing a bunch of cards from our hand to discard. A -4. Ouch. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 1 horror and discard 3 cards from my hand. 2 cards from my hand. Like that. I'll be putting Madame Lebranche into play this turn. And Norman gets... Ooh, also Weekend. Test 3. +1 difficulty and peril if there's a card enemy at your location. Well, there isn't. We'll do something similar where we commit an Arcane Enlightenment to this. 4, 5, 6, 7 against 3 is pretty good. A -5. Yuck. 7 -5 is 2 against 3. I do fail by 1, so I'm going to choose and discard, I suppose, the Hierophant from my hand, because that seems like one I kind of need the least at the moment. Okay, let's try and get the scenario finished off. We're doing pretty good. We're going to get Madame Lebranche into play for Tommy. We're going to go meet up with Norman. And then we're also going to continue up the East Hill to this new location. It's another victory location, 4 Shroud, victory 1 with the parlay. Similar thing, placing horror tokens on the scenario cards. And then over here for Norman, what we're going to do is we're going to walk up the hill. We're going to attempt Tweedledum once with a Perception and an Astronomical Atlas, being 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 against 4. -1 is successful. And this Perception is going to draw us our Research Librarian, and then that's also going to go to hand, and that's going to flip. We're going to attach this other Perception. Also, let's not forget placing the horror on Tweedledee. And finally, we're just going to go for the end of the scenario rather than go and get that fragment of Alice in the center, committing another Perception and the Bellman for, once again, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's just get up to 10 so that the -5 doesn't arbitrarily fail us. 10 against 4. That is a -4 right now, and that is a successful test. So regardless of the rest of the effects, we do place a horror on Tweedledee. When there's 2 horror on Tweedledee, we flip him and move him to the victory display with 2 victory on him. And if Tweedledum and Tweedledee are both in the victory display, we advance. Eating Crow. The Tweedle's nerves were failing them at the Crow's appearance, but your added fear-mongering sends them screaming and scrambling away from the battle. Without their leaders, the cards and chess pieces have no further driving force and amble away from the valley harmlessly. Satisfied, you grab the last discarded piece of the rattle and turn your attention up to the shadowy crow. You assemble the pieces of the rattle as quickly as you can while the monstrous crow wheels upward. Would the rattle work as it did before it was broken? You cross the fingers of your free hand and shake the rattle wildly as the shadowy bird swoops down at you. It dives within inches of your face and you nearly cringe, but the shadows flow around you and the crow feathers drift harmlessly down to the ground as the beast disperses. A pair of terrified whimpers direct your attention to Tweedledum and Tweedledee, hugging each other fearfully as they stare at your direction. "'Tain't natural, not nohow," they mewl. "And all for a rattle." They look to the rattle and cringe in fear, the very sight of it now reminding them of the crow. They retreat a short distance away from you and talk amongst themselves for a moment. Finally, the duo shakes their hands and walks away with arms over each other's shoulders. It seems unlikely, but perhaps you've scared them some sense into them after all. In your campaign log, record 2 tally marks under Strength of Wonderland. In your campaign log, record that the Tweedles learned that there are worse things than fighting each other. Resolution 6. The rattle seems so ordinary, and yet you can feel some strange power within it. It's a simple feeling that a childish object could banish your fears and nightmares, but in Alice's dreams, perhaps there is some tangible truth to it. Any possible weapon against the shadows is worth keeping a hold of at any rate. Any one investigator may choose to add Tweedle's Rattle to his or her deck. This card does not count towards the investigator's deck size. And let's take a quick look at that. It's a 2-cost asset with a willpower, agility, and wild icon. Wonderland item, accessory slot, blessed. Action, exhaust Tweedle's Rattle. Investigate, ignore all effects that increase your shroud's location for this test. Action, exhaust Tweedle's Rattle. Evade. If your target has the monster, abomination, or shadow traits, you get +2 agility for this test. As good as new. Not sure if this is going to be making it into any of our decks. I guess we'll make that determination between the scenarios, but I'm not anticipating this is good enough for either of our characters. Each investigator earns experience equal to the victory X value of each card in the victory display. We've got 1-2 for Tweedledee, 1-2 for Tweedledum. We've got 1 here on the West Hill. I did miss the one on the East Hill. Kind of seems like maybe I should have been able to go for this, but I was happy ending the scenario where I was ahead. And if the investigators went down the rabbit hole, we proceed to the Interlude, the Lion, and the Unicorn. And that's where we're going to be leaving it off on this episode. Thanks very much for watching. This was a pretty interesting scenario. Quite a bit shorter than the last one, I think. Bit of an easier choice spaces in some ways, but also really cool. I liked the enemy density for Tommy. Really got off the ground running with the star early. As did, I think Norman's increased deck size made me a bit less painfully suffering through my weaknesses. I'm not 100% sure on that yet. Might have just been the way that cookie crumbled for him in that particular shuffle, but I guess we'll see how that continues on in the rest of the campaign. Thank you very much for watching again, and I'll see you guys next time.